You guys are muted. Hi, Miss Mayor. Nice to see you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. So we'll just give everybody a minute or two to arrive. Thank you so much for coming to talk to everybody. It's such an honor to have you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be
I was just playing a little bit of Dropkick Murphys before to get everybody
here.
fired up, but then I stopped it for a moment. I think it was maybe their performance at the Middle East restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Jonah, that's a fantastic picture you've got of yourself there, levitating through the power of reading.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was from a graphic design class last year. It was fun.
Absolutely great. And Miss Mira, this is Dean Farkas. She's the dean of the undergraduate program here as well.
Hi,
Very
how are
nice
you?
meeting you. Thank you so
You
much for
too.
coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
Monica, were you able to hear that music that I was playing before?
I was.
Okay, so I'll just play another minute or two to get people fired up. That's a Boston song that they play at Fenway Park when there are people there, and that's my backdrop, so that's why I was choosing it. So I think the Middle East restaurant is not showing musical shows right now, but that band used to perform a lot there, and Central Square is one of the premier nightlife and music and sort of I don't know cultural areas of the greater Boston area. So that's another point of Cambridge pride. Okay, so we can let people, come in over the next couple of minutes, I think. But maybe, Monica, did you want to just sort of welcome the mayor and say a few words first, and then I could introduce her and just say a few words myself, and we can carry on to the main attraction. I'm sure not everybody really wants to listen to all of the whole people that
To
there are
any
here.
of us, right? I agree. I agree, Bob. And thank you so much first for inviting the mayor to our class. And I have to tell you that I feel very excited and honored to welcome you to Holt, even if only virtually. I wished we could have done it in person. We have a very beautiful campus. But I have to tell you that as a school, we do feel lucky and privileged to be in such an amazing city with such great leadership. So thank you for everything that you are doing to make sure that we are in a beautiful community, in a safe community, and in a great city to be located in. I hope to have the opportunity anytime, hopefully sooner rather than later, to invite you for a visit in person and to explore collaboration opportunities with the community, because we are looking very much forward to also engaging with the community that we are part of. So together with our students, we are eager to contribute in one way or another to the community. So if you have any projects that we could engage with, we are very much welcoming that collaboration. As Bob mentioned, I think that the students are very much looking forward to hearing from you. So I just want to welcome you to Holt formally, to thank you personally for addressing our students and for being such an inspiration to all of us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Monica. I would just say very briefly that it is also a deep honor and really privilege and delight to be able to welcome the mayor to talk to you all. First of all, just on a personal level, I met the mayor when she was a candidate for city council, when she came and knocked on my door, and we had a lovely chat. And I was extremely impressed by her, just sort of de novo, you can say, just on the first meeting, and was delighted to vote for her. In addition, after she was on the council, I had the chance to meet with her a few times in various city events, and particularly through a wonderful friend of mine who I've been friends with for, gosh, maybe almost 25 years. Used to live downstairs from our current state representative, Marjorie Decker. And she actually suggested that I rent an apartment downstairs from her. So Marjorie is a supporter of the mayor's, and I had a chance to meet her at Marjorie's house as well. And so basically, I would just say that, I think Sumbul represents the living embodiment of many of the things that I try to teach you wonderful students in our classes, which is the power of ambition, of hard work, of self-confidence, and embracing people's diversities and finding the strength that those provide to this amazing society that we're a part of. I think that in kind of discourse that often divides people, one loses sight of the strength that comes from diversity and unity among many different vectors. Some of them obvious, like people's gender or the color of their skin or maybe their religious practices, but many of them also not so obvious, like how easy it is for them to read, or how much their family means to them, or all kinds of things like that. So anyway, it's just a real delight to be able to present her to you and let her talk to you, which is much more important than having me talk. So, Ms. Mayor, please welcome to our school.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here today. Can you hear me okay? All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk to students, and especially, I've heard a lot about Hult, and, I look forward to talking to you, Dean, about how we let our students here in Cambridge know more about the school. So I guess I'll give you a little background on who I am, and then some of the work that I've been up to the last few years. And then I'd love to hear some questions, and really feel free to ask me anything. I think that's the best part of these, where I talk a lot, in my everyday life. So it's fun to hear from all of you. So in a nutshell, I am serving my second term on council. So this is only my third year in elected office. And I'm fairly new to politics. But that initial bug of getting involved and thinking about running was really early for me. And it happened actually when I was growing up in Cambridge. So I was born in Pakistan, and we immigrated here, my twin brother and me, and my mom and dad. And really, my mom and dad wanted to have a better life, right? They said, it's what you hear, American dream, you come here and things will be easier and better, and etc. And they got here, and it was really hard for them. A lot of their education just didn't translate over here. And so they, I think at that time, just got jobs, right? They wanted to support the family. And then what we benefited from were all the resources were in Cambridge. We were in a city called Alston, which is really nearby in Boston, for a little while, and then they had applied for some affordable housing in Cambridge, and we were able to move here because of that. So I grew up in North Cambridge for many years. We moved to East Cambridge, so actually very much close to where Hult is. So Leechmere is very familiar to me. Very much spent a lot of time there. My mom actually has worked at the Strong Market at the Twin City Plaza, which is right near Hult. There's a Strong Market over there. There's a grocery store over there. So she's been working there for about almost 19 years. So anyway, that neighborhood has changed a lot, and we can get into that later, but there's a lot more change coming in that area. I grew up in those parts of the city, went through the public school system, really loved all the different programs in Cambridge, really benefited from all the courses, and that instilled this desire to give back and want to give back. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I got really interested in policy and how policies were made. So I went to Brown, studied public policy, and then I said, what else can I do? And, my immigrant parents said, what about being a doctor? That's kind of what they had wanted. And I said, I hate blood. I'm not doing that. And they're like, okay, what about business? And I was like, well, my twin is doing that, so I'm covered. I was like, Rahan is getting his MBA. Like, I don't need to, do that. So I decided to do law school, and I can get to law school later, but I ended up going to law school, and then I graduated from 2014, so fairly recently. And at the time, I decided to move back to Massachusetts. And so I kind of began my legal career here and became a legal aid attorney at a nonprofit, helping, people. And then, I thought more about, what I wanted to do. And I really realized a few things. I said, I love policy work, and I love helping people with problems and solving their problems. What is out there that I can do? And in the back of my mind, I think starting in high school, when I had worked on youth advocacy issues and co-founded a youth council here with one of my good friends. The youth council is actually in its almost 20th year, Cambridge. I remember coming to City Hall and remember looking at some of the counselors, and funny story, two of the counselors are still on the council with me to this day. So that's funny. And I said, wow, that just seems like a really cool job, to sit there and listen to people and to help them. So I said, I'm not, at that time I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get into elected office, but one day I want to do it. And, after the 2016 election, I saw myself wanting to get more involved in the Cambridge community and re-involved, learn about what's been happening, what's changed, what issues are. And so I decided to run. And so that was in 2017 that I ran and then won my first election. And then I served for 2 years. And then the way it works in Cambridge, and I can get into this later if you have questions, the elections are every 2 years. So it's really like it passes quickly. The time passes quickly, and then you're already running again. And so then you're running with, there's only 9 seats. And so usually there's many candidates, and you have to get elected by everyone who lives in the city. And there's no ward. There's not like a section of a neighborhood that you represent. You represent everyone. So the elections are difficult. You have to first get elected as city council, and then your colleagues have to choose you as mayor. And so I was chosen in January 6th by my colleagues. And it's been a very almost 10 months of a lot of hard work in light of the pandemic. It was going to be hard anyway, right? But it was probably going to be a little bit more, you have so many events, you're doing things for the community, pizza parties, luncheon, you name it, Christmas, all these holiday things, like you name it. That hasn't happened because of COVID, and the shift has, I think, unique to all elected officials, but particularly as my role as mayor, it's very, very unique. So happy to talk about that pandemic and what my office has done since the pandemic has been with us. And that's, I've come to terms with it, as I think many people around the world are, is right now this is our reality. And it's a lot of wait and see about what will happen, unfortunately. But the pandemics will be with us and the ramifications of it for quite some time. So my role really as mayor, it's really twofold. I chair the council meetings. The city council really is the legislative policy making arm for the city. And then I chair the school committee, which has been probably the most challenging aspect of my role thus far. And really where I've spent, I think, the bulk of my energy and time, because issues that are so new and so difficult with the Cambridge public school system and the reopening. So I chair those meetings. So it has been a very, very busy time. I don't do it alone. I have a great team helping me. And so, you know, we day by day, no day is the same. No day is the same, which is really fun. But they're long, long days. And I could be working every hour, every day if you know, I don't, but you know, I have to have some work-life balance, but I am, you know, very much working constantly on various issues facing residents and facing the city. So that's a little bit about me, how I ended up where I am, how it's been. And then I'm happy to answer kind of questions that any of you have about Cambridge, about things that, you know, you think you have questions around, whether it's housing, whether it's just anything. I'm happy to answer. Anyone can start. I saw Jonah, and then I'll go to the question in the chat.
Yes, so how do you think your podcast, Women Are Here, helps you connect with the community and have them better understand what you're doing in the future?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the podcast, I think it's a very fun way for me and Alana to share information to people. I think people don't necessarily have the time to tune into meetings at 5:30 on a Monday night or on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. So we're able to give that information like a quick and easy way. And people really like podcasts these days, right? And they can, you know, go on a walk, listen to the podcast, kind of get information about this fair happening there. Like, I've seen it's been a really good way to share information and for people to get to know us outside of the City Hall contacts. And, you know, she and I are good friends. And so we're able to, we kind of talk about, we usually have been doing the podcast on Fridays. And so we get to Friday and we're like, wow, what a week. So much has happened. And, you know, I think the listeners we have, they just really appreciate our candor. And so I think the podcast, Women Are Here, it's on, I'll do a link to it. I don't really remember. I'm like, where is it? I think it's on iTunes. It's free.
I'll put a link. I can put a link to it. No.
Okay, great. Yeah. So it's fun. We were on a hiatus, but we're trying to get back into it. And then 2 questions in the chat. What is it like to campaign? Campaigning is brutal. It's brutal. Honestly, it's hard. I took a 6-month kind of course right before I ran for office on like the nuts and bolts of like how to campaign, how to raise money, you know, how many doors you're gonna need to knock, everything. I had no idea. So, you know, I did this course through Emerge Massachusetts, which is for just women and women who are Democratic and want to run for office. And so it was it was really hard to apply all that, you know, really long days. And then especially when you get elected, then you're a counselor, and then you're supposed to campaign, and it's competitive. It's so, campaigning is not fun. Door knocking is brutal. I love the doors because I love meeting people and talking to them. Then also, you know, last summer campaigning was brutal. There were a lot of like angry people on various things, and a lot of doors slammed, a lot of yelling, a lot of like really rude people. And I don't take it to heart, but I'm like, wow, I wish I'm like, what, why aren't people nice? Most people are, but there were a lot of doors slammed, and a lot of like, who are you? What do you want? So that's the tricky part. And then as a woman, what are some challenges you've experienced, and what are some helpful tips to succeed? What are some different types of barriers that were put in your path? You know, I think one of the challenges I've experienced is probably like some ageism, right? I'm 32, and so I'm young, on the younger end of my colleagues. You know, most of them are. There's one who just got elected who's, you know, a few, you know, maybe 1 or 2 years younger, but I think that you know, in the beginning kind of played a role with my colleagues, and I think I think eventually have treated me as their equal. You know, I'm an attorney. I have a lot of, you know, lived life experience. And so, but at the beginning I felt it, and I felt that some of my colleagues said certain things in a way that were condescending. And so I sat down with my colleagues and said, you know, you said, you know, you were saying that I was doing a good job, but you said, oh, way to go, kiddo, you know, like, don't call me kiddo. You know, so I had to, and again, these are people who are 30 years older than me. So I understand it a little bit, but I also was like, oh, I don't know if you know you're doing this. And they're like, oh, wow, I did not realize that. So I have always just been able to talk through that. But those are some of those challenges. But the tip I have is to always talk about it. And sometimes I have to really work on that, because I'm like, oh, you know, I'm not going to say this. I won't say it. You know, I'm just going to hold it to myself. But that stuff will fester. And so the appropriate way to do it is, if something does get you, you know, pissed off, or if someone is upset, or you're upset with someone, I will usually just give them a call and say, look, this happened. I don't appreciate this. You know, this is where I'm coming from. And usually, I think in all my experiences, people have been really open to that. And you know, as to the different barriers, I think, you know, raising money is harder when you don't have that network. You know, the people I've run with, and the people again, they're older, and not much older, they're older, so they have these vast networks, and I just didn't. And so I was really relying on smaller donations, and I usually always raise the least amount of money from all my colleagues. But money, I've seen in my elections, it hasn't been a huge issue to the number of votes I get, because I always get more votes than most of my colleagues. And so I think where I lack in maybe the fundraising, I make up with all the doors I knock. So yeah, what drives me to go through with the process? Just, I mean, I think whenever I talk to people who I can help, right? And it's wanting to, you know, help the people who don't have access to resources. And I think of, I just think of them, and that gets me through. It's hard. I mean, I don't know how long I'll be able to do it, but it's because it's so draining from your life, just giving yourself to public service. And, you know, sometimes you can't help people at all. And that's a really big challenge that I deal with, especially now, the people on the housing list, people who, you know, are homeless. I'm just like, I wish I could do something, and sometimes I can't. So that's hard, but it drives me to where I am. I don't have, what book would I recommend? I have not been reading too much lately because I've been so, I hate to say that, but I've been reading a lot about pandemics and schools. But a book, I don't have a, I mean, I did read this book called Just Mercy, which is really a powerful story about it's Brian Stevenson, and a lot of the work that he's done around wrongful conviction and so forth. So definitely read that. I feel like after reading that, I feel like maybe that's my next, what I want to do next. Anyway, that's a whole other point, but I am thinking about criminal justice system and using my legal skills. But that's a good book. How do you plan all the aspects to keep the city safe with the pandemic, like reopening of commerce and schools and all the logistics? So in Cambridge, my role, I'm the mayor, and then there's also a city manager. And so in other cities, the mayor has control over all the departments and oversees them. I, as the Cambridge mayor, don't. The city manager does, but the council mayor, we appoint the city manager to oversee various departments. I think I've been very involved in like the pandemic planning, and so I've had more of, I think, a role than others do, and have worked really closely with the city manager and his team around what we're going to be doing, especially the first 6 months. So I remember of like, this is when we're going to close schools, because this is when we have to do this. I remember, like, when are we going to be, locked, when's our stay-at-home order? All these things we had to really plan, and all those logistics, we had to discuss with the Cambridge Health Department. So we really work closely with the Cambridge Health Department. I talk to the Cambridge Health Department every week, like a standing meeting with the director, and then obviously throughout the day, text here and there. So I have really close relationships because of just the nature of, everyone is looking to the mayor. I've had much more, I think, responsibility and have played more of a role than I think mayors in past years get to, because it's not really the role. So with the schools reopening, really had a huge part of that, because as chair of the school committee, we're setting the policies and deciding how to reopen. So that has been really truly challenging. Let's see.
Sumbul, let me just interject for 1 second, because one element of all these students that you're talking to that I know about, but it's maybe hard for you to see. I mean, they're all awesome, but they are also from so many different places. So maybe when you ask a question, like Noel, you asked your question, it's fine to text them in. That's great, but also just tell the mayor, like, kind of a little bit about your background, so that, because we have a lot of Cambridge residents here, so yeah, that might be useful if you have a chance. And if you guys want to put up your hands, then I can call on you, but you can also just keep texting them through the chat. It's no problem at all to do that as well. And we have some time.
So who is, like, I guess Metzley?
Yeah, Metzley, do you want to just tell the mayor where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm from Mexico. I'm currently in Mexico. I hope to get to Boston in January. And my question is, what is your biggest, like your most proudest achievement so far?
Sure. So right before the pandemic, in January, February, I was working on a few things, and one of the things was, and it was, we had started really focusing on it the term before. Essentially, in a nutshell, in cities, there's affordable housing, and some of this affordable housing is tied to funding from the federal government. And sometimes it's like, 20 years, 30 years. And sometimes that funding expires. And so there were these 3 buildings where I grew up, you know, in North Cambridge, or there were 2 of these buildings, about 504 units that we knew were going to be, their subsidy would be expiring by December 2020. And so if it had expired, really in some places where things like this expire, the owner can say, you know, I'm going to make all this housing market. In this case, the city had to really step in and help subsidize and make sure, I'm trying not to use too many technical terms, but to preserve the affordable housing. And so we were able to allocate, you know, it's going to be probably over $40 million in the grand scheme of things to make sure that this housing is preserved for the next, you know, 50 years and is affordable. So, you know, I was very, you know, proud of that, because I know so many of the families there, the residents, and, you know, they're so happy that they can stay. And so that was something that I really was really proud of. And, you know, we have a meeting with the tenants actually next week on Zoom to kind of just give them some more good news about different things that are coming up. And so that feels good. That was really something I was proud of. Thanks for the question. And then Fiona Cortelli.
Yes, so thank you very much for these very great insights. Absolutely interesting. Thank you so much. I was just wondering about what are you trying to fulfill over the next few years, and what would you like to be remembered as or for?
Oh, yeah.
And maybe Fiona, just tell her where you're from too, like a little bit, just a word or two of background.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Excuse me. My apologies. I'm from Zurich, Switzerland.
Awesome. So I want to go to Mexico and Switzerland. Haven't been to either. So let's see. I think this term, and my term is technically up a year from December, but a year from November is an election. So it's weird. So I have some time to get things, you know, accomplished. I think really my focus the last 10 months, and really more so the last 7 months, has shifted. I think maybe some of the things that I, you know, had thought about doing and implementing, you know, we had to kind of put a pause on certain things. I can get into that, but we've had to pivot. And so I think really the improvements right now that I'm hoping that we have made, and that I'm hoping will continue, really are going to be around keeping the schools open. And right now we're only open for the youngest learners and those with the highest needs. And so we have grades 4 to 12 remote, you know. So that has going to be this already having an impact, but it's going to have a huge impact on education here. And so the goal right now is to really reopen safely. We only have about 1,500 kids who are in person, and it's challenging because the metrics keep changing. So a lot of books around how do we continue to open schools this next year. And then secondarily, also, we were able to enact an ordinance that I had been working on this summer related to tenant rights and resources. And this is really important because right now, because there's a pandemic, you know, we've had like a moratorium on evictions, and it expired, but we have a Cambridge moratorium. But, you know, we really all in all want to make sure that people have access to housing and resources. And so this Notification Act, with that, we were able to send information to residents and landlords about, you know, the different type of rent programs that we have, the different type of resources that we have that can help both the landlord and the tenant, so that there's no eviction, that there's no eviction filing. I think that what people don't understand is that filing of an eviction, even if you've done nothing wrong and even if it gets sorted, it is on your record and it's public. And so I think we want to really get to that point where residents, you know, landlords aren't filing evictions. Sometimes they'll have to file it when it's due to, an illegal situation, crime, so forth. But if it's over like, $100, $200 of non-payment of rent, there's resources here. We want to work with the family. We want to work with the landlord to say, look, don't file. There's rent arrears. Let the city step in, and let's make sure that we get this tenant on track and stay housed. And so that's really going to be a lot of my priority is making sure we adhere to this ordinance. I think something else that we're working on that, and then I'll pivot, but is around digital digital access and who has internet access. We have many families who don't have reliable internet. So how are they supposed to remote learn, right? And so early on in the pandemic, we were able to, give out Chromebooks. We were able to give out hotspots. I said, look, I really want to make sure the families who need internet should have internet. So we were able to allocate money towards providing some of our residents internet for up to a year through this Comcast Essentials program. Comcast, I can say a lot about Comcast, but it's really important that the city prioritizes making sure that those who don't have access to internet have that access. And so we're doing a lot of work around that, and I hope that we'll continue the next year. Something else that I've been working on is really to make sure that we increase free COVID testing to all Cambridge residents. That's been a challenge nationwide, but at Cambridge, we really have pushed on our testing. I pushed on making sure we are testing our teachers. So that's something that, it took many months to do, but we were able to do it. And here we're going to be making testing even more available to residents. And so, those are just a few things the next few months. I think I want to be just remembered for the work I've done with helping people and some of these initiatives that are, involved, whether it's the preservation of the apartments I just talked about, to, the response since the pandemic.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's see. The next one was IE and then Noel. So I don't know how good your connection is, IE, but maybe Elisa, you can unmute and just tell the mayor where you're from.
Yeah, hi, I'm Elisa. You can also call me IE. I'm from China, and I was wondering that in terms of reinforce some regulation, such as recycling or minimize plastic use, since those are very beneficial to the public, but those are very hard to measure and make sure everyone follows those rules. So what's your insight or recommendation in terms of implementing those rules while making sure that everyone follows? Thank you.
Yeah, I think enforcement is always an issue. I think with respect to recycling and minimizing plastic use, the city, we offer free weekly recycling collection to most residential buildings. It's mandatory here. And then the question is, how does people do it? What we've seen in Cambridge is that there is such a desire to recycle. there's such a desire to, be really environmentally conscious. And I think that is unique. I think we, I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but like we have like really reduced. We've we've had some measure of keeping track of how we're doing with to getting rid of our waste. Currently our recycling program is mostly for paper and cardboard, for plastic containers, for glass bottles and jars, metal cans and foil. But we do a lot of different events throughout the city to make sure that, if there's other things that people want to recycle, whether it's confidential papers, we have, shredding events for that. We want to make it as accessible as possible. We have a place where the items where you can't recycle will make sure the place that you can recycle. One of the things that I was involved in was the mattress program that we have here, mattress pickup. We partnered with an organization who really great work in the state, and they now you can schedule a mattress pickup. So really making it easier for people to follow the rules. I think to your question about if you don't follow the rules, like we also have to make sure that people are aware of some of the consequences. I think with the recycling, it hasn't been a huge issue. I think where we're seeing issues come up is a lot of related to we have a rat problem, and some property managers are doing a better job than others of really facilitating a better response to the management. That goes back to kind of the trash and the trash upkeep, and so that's been harder. But as far as like recycling and minimizing plastic use, we've, I think, done a better job than most cities.
Thank you so much. I was actually not aware about the rat issue because I recently just moved here. Now I'm very concerned.
Well, yeah, it is concerning. I think it's, in the beginning we were just seeing a huge uptick because the rats usually had a source from the restaurants, right? The restaurants were closed. So there's a lot of things happening. But, what we've done is recently, where the city's providing like better trash cans and that, are much better, rat resistance and so forth. So we're taking care of it. I think some of it's because we do all have a lot of construction and just a lot of rats, but if you see any, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Noel, maybe you can introduce yourself. Just tell the mayor a little bit about yourself, and you had that great question there.
Hi, my name is Noel. I'm from Germany, Bavaria. Yeah, and I think this is my second class with Bob. I really enjoy it. And my question is, if you have the feeling that you're able to like give Cambridge a voice next to like such a big city like Boston, because I was always wondering, like, is it really effective? Like, you already explained it a lot now with like the recycling, but I was always wondering, like, is it really effective if Cambridge has like a regulation regarding plastic bags and Boston doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cambridge, yeah, sure, we're smaller than Boston, but we're different in many respects too. We're about 110,000, and we are a very I think we are, big city in some sense, and so I think people look to us for things that we do, and I think that ordinance, the option of bringing your own bag or paying, a minimum of 10 cents, has been very, very popular, and it's led to other cities, doing the same. I think we're the first city in any Massachusetts that would do this, and it's been pretty successful. And more cities have called us, and have really modeled their bans according to us. Boston not doing it, I mean, it still does make a difference in my view. I think how we're assessing the effectiveness of it, I'm not, I'm sure there's some department working on that, but our ban had been like, in the works. It took a lot. I think we had started talking about it in 2007. So it took until about 2016 to even get it done. So it took a while, but I'm not sure if that's answering your question, but I think
I would have a follow-up question.
What?
I would have a follow-up question.
Yeah, go for it.
And do you believe that you can also like influence other cities when it comes to like the program where you ask like the community what they want and how they want to like have the money distributed? Because like I enjoyed that a lot. That was something Bob introduced to us in the first class I had with him, where we as students or like people who live in Cambridge were able to like be like, oh, we want a park or we want more public bathrooms, things like that. Like I enjoyed that a lot, and I was wondering if you think you can influence other states too, because there's actually like I'm part of a community in Germany, and they actually want to introduce that to Germany because when they were here, they liked it a lot and they enjoyed it. That like the youth or like the people also have like kind of a voice.
Yeah, I think it's participatory budgeting, and it's been so successful here, and I think we can influence other cities to do it. And in fact, so many cities have contacted Cambridge and said, like, how have you been doing it? Please help us. We'd all love to launch it here. And so, especially in Massachusetts, people have. I think, we're very much some other smaller cities, less wealthier cities in the Commonwealth may not be able to do it because of just the different budgets. We have a big budget because of a lot of the companies do business here and the property tax and so forth. We've been able to really continue it. This year, our participatory budgeting was small due to COVID, potential cuts to COVID, but usually it's we were able to the last cycle to do over $1 million and have a process. And what's great about it is it's gotten better every year. So this last few years we really have made sure that it's in different languages, really making it accessible to people. So absolutely, I think it's something that we want cities to do, and so we've been contacted by cities on how to do it, and our budget office is always willing to help to see where we can be a thought partner to these cities who are trying to get it going in their towns.
Ms. Mayor, I had a quick question for you because we're moving along in the time, and I wanted to be sure that we addressed it, which was several students have come and asked me how they can get more involved in Cambridge. These are undergraduate students, many of them first years, so they'll have 3 or 4 years here, and have a whole wide range of different talents, language, experience, and many others. What kind of thoughts do you have about ways that they can get involved in the community and support it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's ways to volunteer. There's so many places. I mean, right now the policies differ by organization, but there's a lot of virtual ways you can tutor, for example, if you want to do that. There's we have boards and commissions, and I'll send you information on that. We are always looking. There's always vacancies in our boards and commissions, and that's a really great way for you to plug in and participate. We have we have boards and commissions that, you know, exist related to, you know, the bicycle committee to, you know, what else is there? There's like stuff on civic unity. There's stuff, you know, around, you know, LGBTQ issues. There's, you name it. I'll send you the list. But human rights commission. There's the immigrant rights commission, and there's vacancies. And so I would really suggest writing in, and I'm happy to help you with that process. I don't appoint the commissions, but it's all about, you know, encouraging residents in the decision-making process that we have here. So that's another way to plug in. I'm going to send that right now. What else? You know, I think volunteering is really one of the great ways to see the city. If you have time, I think if you want to learn about the issues, you're always welcome to tune into city council and school committee meetings. You know, I'm happy to provide more information on that. You know, I think right now, you know, there's a big election coming, but after that, there'll be the next municipal election. And that a lot of that volunteering, you know, or gets started around, you know, next spring. And so there's always candidates looking for, you know, volunteers from the community to come and help. And that's a good way of seeing the city as well, and getting involved with a local elected official and seeing, you know, the people they're helping and the issues that they're helping with, whether it's related to rats, whether it's related to helping someone find housing. So you can plug in that way. So those are the types of things that when people are like, I want to get involved, I'm like, okay, well, is there an issue area first too? It's interested in food insecurity, right? There's a lot of these food nonprofits. Are you interested in tutoring? You know, kids from, you know, low, you know, who are, you know, or low income, may not have that access. There's a lot of organizations who do specifically that, and whose parents may not speak English, right? Who speak many different languages, and can't help their child necessarily, but you know, maybe there's a way that you can help them, you know, with homework. You know, it's an issue if you want to help with recycling. That we have a recycling committee, right? So there's different ways. So I would suggest if there's an issue you really care about, you know, let me know, and I can maybe, you know, I can definitely help you think about specific ways to get involved. And I put that in there, and then you can, if you have Instagram, you guys can follow me. And if you know, see what I'm working on, and if you have questions, reach out. Limit on membership. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the eligibility for each of the commissions is, but there's usually an application process, and it'll say kind of what the eligibility is. Oh, limit. Yeah, because I was looking at what it said. This is no, who asked if there's a limit on membership. I think for some there is a limit. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about national politics. Can you comment on the upcoming vote and any views you might want to share about that?
Yeah, this election is really important. We in Cambridge have, you know, early voting locations. We have drop-in ballots boxes, locations for that, because, you know, people were like, oh, we don't trust the mail, so we were like, let's have ballot boxes. We're trying to really make it easier for people to vote. And actually, I have some statistics on, you know, we've had it since early voting. Right now, there's about 70,000 registered voters in Cambridge. And so far, the turnout for the presidential election there's already 34,000 ballots that have been returned. So, that's like, I mean, people that, people are very, very much out to vote this year because it's very important. And I'm nervous about the election. I'm always nervous about elections, even my own. I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose. But you just never know. But I am optimistic.
That is very true. I remember going to an event, as I mentioned, at Representative Decker's house a day or two before the last election, and Mayor Siddiqui was quite concerned that she might not get reelected, and in fact, she wound up, I believe, getting the largest number of votes in the entire city. So if she was nervous, you can imagine other people. But that's also a sign of success. You don't take anything for granted.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, if there's any more questions as we wrap up.
One more that I had was I have a number of the students here who are Muslim, and if there are any suggestions that you have for Cambridge's resources for different people of different religious faiths. I mean, one of its strengths, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the incredible diversity in Cambridge. And the opportunities that there are for so many people here to collaborate. Do you have any suggestions for them about resources they can access? I usually direct them to the East Cambridge Mosque because I used to live nearby there. But
yeah, well, there's one mosque we have on Prospect Street near Central Square. I think again, because of the pandemic, things have shifted. The ISP community has a great, Instagram and not Instagram. What am I talking about? Like Facebook. And so that's how I kind of get information on what's happening.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. The Facebook, let me just find it and link it in here. But they do a lot of different community events or just engagements. Usually, like, I will have events with them, but again, this year, no events. But that's a great way to plug in. Also, other universities in Harvard, MIT, Leslie, they have events as well that, like, if it's just for, certain students, like I've seen them work together, and I think they'd love to work, I'm sure they'd invite Hult and do joint events too, right? A lot of joint events between Harvard and MIT all the time. And so, I'd encourage folks to reach out to their memberships because they're definitely willing to, like, if you want to start a group or how to start a group, they probably have a good foundation there and ways they have already plugged into the community that maybe would be helpful to hold.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'm very conscious of all the demands on your time and want to be respectful of that. Are there any last questions that anybody has? Okay, well, Ms. Mayor, you are a great honor to the city of Cambridge, and on behalf of all of your loyal Cambridge resident constituents, thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you, and take care, everyone. And yeah, feel free to reach out on, Instagram or Facebook or whatever people have these days. I don't have a TikTok, but
make sure you get enough sleep, Ms. Mayor. I'm concerned about you.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, it's a pandemic, so.
Okay, well, thank you again.
Bye.